Well, in season 3, the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel went to new locations, introduced new characters as we enter 1960. And I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby. I'm very excited to be sitting with Amy Sherman-Palladino, one of the brains behind this entire great series. Thanks for joining me, Amy. You have so many hats on this show.
And in my closet.
And yeah, not only the literal ones.
Yeah.
Because you're the creator, a showrunner, executive producer, writer, director, music supervisor. So I guess one, when on earth do you get to sleep? And two, this isn't the first time you've worn many hats like that and had all these titles. What is it about having that sort of hands-on process that you enjoy?
Well, it started on Gilmore because when I created Gilmore, at the time, it was a bit of an anomaly. There weren't a lot of hour-long comedies out there, and we had this pace that was very fast and furious, and we were constantly trying to figure out how to do it, the complete and total experiment. And because of that, it just felt, because speed was of the essence, and we didn't have enough time to do everything. And when you don't have enough time to do everything, and it's in your head, sometimes it's just faster if you just do it than trying to explain to somebody else what it is that you need. We never had the luxury of, let's sit down, let's discuss this scene. It was sort of like, go, Lauren, talk. It was like a lot of that. So I think it started from there, and also started from just the frustration of writing scripts and handing them off to people and feeling like, it's okay. And it was like, at some point you're kind of like, I think I need to take it into my own hands just to see if I'm insane, if what's coming out of my brain is even possible. And then once you get used to that, then you got to take it to the editing, because you got to make sure that, because the editing is almost like rewriting the script. It's like a whole new process. Things can be destroyed in editing. Things can be totally revived in editing. Bad scenes can turn great in editing. I mean, it's like a whole third level of producing a piece of content. So you kind of can't drop the ball there. And music is very important to me. A lot of my music is written into the scripts, so it's actually intertwined with the scene, and I in my head visualize certain things happening at a certain beat or on a certain instrumental, and so that's where that part of the megalomania came in, and it just sort of proceeded from there. And then Maisel was that opportunity because I finally had some cash, to see if the picture that was in my head of really creating a world and with a street and with extras and with life, and to see if that was something that I've just always been sitting around like an old lady going, if they would just give me the money, I could really do it. Or whether it was, just not, it was just a crazy fantasy, and I should, stay in my room and smoke opium and lay down and watch television. So it became this sort of like, let's see what this could be. And then I fell in love with this crew and this cast, and once you work with this crew and this cast, and everybody says, we've got the best crew, we've got the best cast, and they're lying, and I'm not, because I have the best crew and I have the best cast. And there is something intoxicating about working with people who are so good, and and when you are of like minds, and you can say to somebody like a David Mullen, I really want this to look a little, when she goes out into the middle of the street, I really wanted to have a feel of like sort of an MGM musical, Arthur Freed kind of Gene Kelly moment. And that David Mullen is going to take that idea and run with it and elevate it to a level that you're like, all right, easy text. It's very thrilling. And I would actually get jealous if somebody else got got to work with them. It's like, they're mine. I'm an only child. I'm not good at sharing. There's something so fun about taking this journey from the very beginning all the way through to the end. And that way, at least, if it fails, it's on me. If it's my fault, I can blame nobody else. And if it works, it's like, great, one, insane idea in the box actually came to fruition. So I think the whole package of, it was such a satisfying endeavor to be able to really see it through. The real fun, writing is lonely, and you're in a room by yourself and you're looking at a blank screen and you're feeling like, I'm out of words and I have no talent. And I remember when my ass was good shaped and now it's like a chair, and I'm old and I'm falling apart. And then you get on a stage and there's no time to think about all that shit, because you gotta produce something, and you gotta get going, and it's fast, and there's people to talk to, and there's this eyeglasses or this eyeglasses, that one, it's like, it's so important. I picked the eyeglasses, and and being able to rehearse with the actors and talk with the actors and move things around and see how things evolve from what it was on the page, what it was from my brain to the page to actually in front of you. It's just kind of a ride. And I don't know, I feel like it's such a hard job to do because it's just a lot, but it's just so fun that you kind of, it's not going to last forever. The good stuff like this doesn't last forever. And I kind of like ride it out while you can. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you talked about how you visualize things, because I've always wondered, you're obviously very well known for your dialogue and this fast pace that you do, but I've always really appreciated the visuals of this story of Mrs. Maisel and the way that New York is filtered through those visuals. And this season, we get to travel to Vegas and to Miami, and it all is fitting within that world. And you have these epic long shots with the camera sweeping into the hotel, or with Midge and Lenny as they're in that bar in Miami. Do you think about the technical aspects of that as you're writing them down, like thinking of how you're going to capture those visuals? Or is it like a dialogue first for you?
No, it's all of a piece, and it always has been of a piece, which is the frustration of handing it off to somebody else who wasn't like living in the brain space. It's not their fault. They're going to do something really great. It's just that they haven't been sitting in the darkness of my sad mind for all of the weeks of the creation that I have, and I write and. With the feeling and the motion in my mind. There's sort of a rhythm and a beat to a lot of the dialogue. And I was supposed to be a dancer. My mother's still tragically mystified at the horrible turn my life has taken. All those years of toe shoes. And it's like, and this is what happened. One corned beef sandwich and the whole thing fell to shit. But I direct like I believe a dancer, and I feel it through a musical internal cadence, if that makes any sense. And because of that, it's all of a piece. So also to shorthand for everybody else who's going to get a script and going to have to know like how many extras are there, and are you going to be looking 380 around, are you going to be looking everywhere, or you're looking into a building, or I write it, and I write the shots and the stage directions into the script so that everybody really sees what I'm seeing, or at least knows what they're in for. And I enjoy that. Midge is a character who is never not in motion. She's a constant. She's just got an engine. She never stops. Even when she walks down the street, she doesn't just stroll down the street. She doesn't just walk down the street. There's usually an energy and a bounce to it. She's that kind of character that like life is an infinite adventure, and everything new is sort of astonishing and something to sort of rush into and sort of experience, figure out what it is, for good and for bad. Because when you rush into something, sometimes you don't think about it ahead of time, and things can happen, and you can make a mistake that doesn't turn out very nicely. But it's like that is her internal engine, and the show needs for me, needs to feel like that. So when we're on the street, you know, one of my biggest things about the extras is like, you know, walk like you're going someplace. You live in New York. You've got someplace to be late. You've got to charge. You got to get a train. You got to, you know, it's like move. And, you know, sometimes that's literally like the hardest thing is to like get the rest of the world around, because Rachel's got an engine. You know, you spend 5 minutes with Rachel and you're like, what's going on? Where are you going? So she's just that kind of girl, which I love. One of the many things I love about Rachel, but it's getting the rest of the world to march to Midge's drum. And that's why a lot of times I started a couple years ago employing dancers as my extras, because dancers have a rhythm and dancers have a great sense of their bodies, and they know how to get out of the way from a camera. When a camera's coming out of them, they know how to move, but they know how to move that just feels like they're moving. That's not like they're like, camera. And I love working with dancers. They're the most disciplined people in the world. So it's like we've incorporated some things over on Maisel that I hadn't done before, but because it just felt like if we're going to keep this engine moving forward, we need all these pieces to make sure that we get through the day. It's just, and this year especially, where Midge was branching out, because Midge's life every year gets a little bigger as she learns what's going on in the world. So this is the first time she's ever been close to fame, like real fame, and seen what that might be like, and traveled and you know, and had her eyes open to some terrible things in the world that she, you know, in the queen of her 6 blocks and her, you know, her temple and her family and her, you know, her fabulous closet, like she didn't have that knowledge, and now she's learning a lot of things. This was sort of a lesson learned season for both Susie and Midge. Both of them sort of learned a little bit like what show business can really mean. There's some wonderful things and some exciting things and some fabulous things, and there's some really awful things that come along with it too. So it's as the world gets bigger and marches on, you know, it has to feel like that. It can't just feel like, and we open this door and what's in there. It's like that to me is not the adventure that this woman is going on. She's sweeping through life. She feels like she started late. You know, she did start late. So when you feel like you start late, you kind of keep going, put it all in before, you know, the piano falls on your head.
Right. Well, one of the things that is part of her adventure this season is we end in the finale with her performing at the Apollo. Yeah. Which doesn't really end up the way she wants it to go, the after effects of that. And it's always interesting because you seem to like to push her outside of her comfort zone a lot. She does have great success with her stand-up bits that are super funny, but then she gets into points where she's almost going to flop or does flop. Why is that an interesting space for you to go?
Well, I think that is the lesson of show business. Like show business, it doesn't matter how successful you are. You're going to ride high one year, and then the next year, you know, something terrible is going to happen to you. It's just the nature of this business, you know. And it doesn't. There's no security in it. There's no feeling like, you know, if you just get to a certain level, then you're going to be fine. You know, when you hear about like what Martin Scorsese has to go through to get money, you're like, it's Martin Scorsese. What are you talking about? It's like it's a hard business, and it's almost as if you have your great success, and then the next day you're starting all over again. And it's just the nature of it. It's why it's exciting. It's a challenge. It's full of like, what's going to happen today? So you're never bored. But it's a lot of hits, and it's a lot of judgment. It's a lot of things that are very, and especially stand-up. My father was a stand-up. My father actually played the Apollo. So I was kind of like, from day one, I'm like, she's got to play the Apollo, because I just was trying to picture my dad playing the Apollo. And he's Rachel Brosnahan now. So it's complicated our relationship a little bit, but it's the idea that every time she feels like I got it, she doesn't have it, is kind of the lesson of life. And you know, it's a lot of things come really easy to Midge because she's sort of fearless and she's very determined, and she doesn't get knocked back a lot. Like when she gets knocked back, she doesn't take to her bed and eat ice cream and cry and order the pizza. She just sort of like kind of goes, well, that sucked. All right, let's see. How do we get back in there? But this time, because she's getting now to a level where, you know, fame is coming for her. It was important for her to really learn that it doesn't kind of matter. And even a guy like Shy Baldwin, you know, she's seeing how famous he is and people throwing themselves at him, and he doesn't even have to put his own shoes on. Someone puts his shoes on for him. Like, he's so famous. But like, look what happens with his personal life, and that he has to hide who he is, and that means he's alone, and it's like he has all these trappings and all these wonderful things, but he's all by himself and truly torn inside and scared, because everything that he's built can be taken from him. And that's a big lesson about the business in general. Anything in life, anything you build can be taken from you. And it really, she's learning the lessons of life, you know, and she never learned those lessons before. So, you know, if I don't teach them to her, who the hell is she going to learn them from? So it behooves me to shove her out there and then again, drop the piano on her head.
Yeah. Well, I did want to touch before you go, because you're certainly at a successful period right now. And this show has, you've won 5 Emmys from the show. And some of those are solo wins, like for writing and directing. Others you share with your husband. Do the two of you ever get into sort of some friendly competition over who's going to rack up more nominations or wins?
Not really. Not yet. It could be coming, but no, not really. We've been doing this for so long. You know, we went all those years on Gilmore, and you know, Gilmore never got anything, right. And it was fine for me, but I'm still angry about Lauren Graham. Like, I still feel like the work that Lauren did is so not underrated by the fans. The fans have given her all the love, but you know, Lorelai was a quite complex character and had a lot of journeys going on, and Lauren is just maybe the most gifted female comedian of her generation. I'll just say it, and that is who she is. So I was always a little pissed about that, I gotta admit. But we look at this show like we have so many people that we rely on. Our cinematographer, Jim McConkey, our Steadicam genius, Donna Zakowska, who makes these costumes that, like, I mean, frankly, you could just film the costumes on a dress form and people would be like, oh my God. Bill Groom, who I call Harry Potter because his sets are just like ridiculous. They're so beautiful. Anywhere you shoot a camera, you're a genius. And because we have this crew is so crack and they care so much. And this cast is so brilliant that I think the thing that we really like is that it's been spread around, and that people have been noticed, and a lot of the work has gotten a tip of the hat, because it's a really hard show. It's a lot of work. There's nothing easy on this show. There's no easy days on this show. There's no like, oh, woo. You know, when we went to Florida, every day at 4:00 there was a lightning storm that shut us down every day. And so literally it was like, we had to get all of our work done by 4:00 or we were just screwed. Mm-hmm. And you can only do that on this show with oneers, with outside extras, with scope and heat, and because it was ridiculously hot, and there's iguanas everywhere, and that we can't even, it's a nightmare. And but you can only do that if you have this great group of people, and we're all in it together, and we're all trying and pulling and working, and nobody is like, it's too hot, you guys take it, I'm going to sit over here. And because there's been a lot of like nods to people who really deserve it, I think that's the thing we care about most of all. I mean, it's fun to get a shiny toy surprise, as Buffy would say it, but it's really about the group and our actors who are just so sensational. And then I just have such deep love, and I'm so grateful to if this is the last thing I ever do, not bad. So I'm really grateful to everybody who's literally taking 10 years off their lives to do this show with us. And so I think the awards are fun that way. And we have been working together for so long, and we're not really a team. We're sort of weird. Like, people are like a little confused as to what we are, because we don't write together, and we're actually separate more than we're together. Because if he's writing, I'm on stage directing, or I'm in editing if he's directing. And a lot of times nighttime will come and we'll sit down and we'll go, hey, what did you do today? Were you there? So it's and yet we're perceived as such this unit, walking in lockstep. So weirdly, I think that because we're such a well-oiled machine, and there's been no shining, there's been no murder suicide attempts going on, which is nice, because there's a lot of sharp things around here. It's if he won everything one year, I don't think I could be happier. And when I won the weirdo writing, directing, they didn't even let me go off stage. It was very strange and surreal. He was thrilled. So it's like what we do is it's a win for the team.
Yeah. Well, we'll hope it continues to be spread around, and certainly not the last thing you do. We'll expect more Maisel for you. So everyone who's out there watching, make sure you subscribe to Gold Derby and keep in touch with us throughout Emmy season. Amy, thank you so much for talking with me.
You're so welcome. Thank you for appearing in a box in front of me.
Thank you.